Hi everyone, this is Mr. RB. I've been thinking lately about the work of Georgia O'Keeffe and her life as an artist and as a person, and I've been looking at her paintings. I really enjoy so much of her work, and I hope you do too. When I look, the three questions I ask myself first are, what do I notice? What do I see? What else can I notice when I look closer or for a little longer? And then finally, what's my evidence for things I'm thinking? Maybe I'm thinking in this one that it looks like fire. Well, what am I seeing that makes me think that? I'd probably go to the colors and maybe some of the shapes. But I was also thinking about how she worked and how she looked very closely at things in nature, like these canna lilies. After she looked very closely to see them really up close, she could make a large, beautiful painting inspired by the canna lily. We would say this is abstract because she took parts of what she was seeing. She looked very closely, and there were two strategies she used a lot in these that we can talk about today. One is enlarging. This little canna lily flower became a large painting, much larger than the original flower. Also, she used cropping, where she'd focus on just one part of what she's seeing and focus in very closely. We're going to be using that today as well. So, to get to work, I started with a photograph, in this case of this cactus. But I wanted to just use part of it so I could focus in really closely. I folded it in four and then cut out that one section. That's the only section I'll use. This part up here, the L, I could put it back in my folder for later or give it to a friend if they want to use it. Next, I took a nice fresh Sharpie, a regular size one. Well, I think of it as regular, but one of the ones that they call fine point, not super fine or ultra fine, just a regular fine point Sharpie. We have a lot of them in the art room. And I traced the edges of the shapes. I went along these long, prickery, sharp looking parts, and then around these little lighter shapes that they come out of. And then I even went along the lines that went between the sections. When I turned my paper over, I had what looks like a line drawing from the photograph. I did this because I wanted to take out or abstract only the lines of the edges of the shapes I wanted. I wanted to not have to see color or tone or any other details, just the line along the edges of shapes. Next, I took my small tracing and I used a bigger sheet to make an enlarged, bigger version of what I had traced. I started with just a few prickly shapes, these long skinny triangles and then this long skinny rectangle. Over here was the section I was working in, right in that little corner. I also noticed this sort of fluffy shape over here on the side, and I made the same sort of fluffy shape in this corner, but bigger. I continued on. I added the long skinny triangles and that little jagged edged cloud-like shape, I think of it as cloud-like, that I saw here, so I made a bigger one here. I noticed that this long skinny triangle went across this one, so I did the same thing over here, just larger. Everything I do, I try to make the same sort of shape in the same sort of place, only bigger. I kept adding the shapes until I had all the long skinny triangles and all three of those spiky little cloud shapes. And finally, I noticed there were edges right between things. These long edges here. These long edges here. So I added them in here. And that gave me a drawing definitely inspired by the lines from the original photograph. It is not a precise or absolutely accurate copy, but it is inspired by, I looked at the shapes and I made them bigger, and that's how I got going. Well, now I'm ready to start working on adding color. Give me a moment and I'll be right back with you to add the color. Well, I'm back and I'm ready to start adding some color. Today, I'm using these Crayola oil pastels, but any material you wanted could work. And if you want to use oil pastels, there are many brands available, and they each have their wonderful qualities. I do find different brands can be different. Some are a little oilier, some are a little waxier, some are a little more transparent, and some are a little more opaque, meaning you can't see through them. But these ones I find do work very nicely for me, and I'm familiar with them, so I'm going to use these today. I'm going to start by picking out a color, and I'm going to color in a shape. I think I will start with a light yellow, and I'm just going to fill this little pointy shape with the yellow. I'm going to try to stay inside the lines. Oil pastel is great for blending, layering, scratching through. There's a lot of wonderful things about it. But it can make it a little harder for things like teeny tiny little details. So I'm glad I did make these shapes larger, because they're a lot easier to color in now that they're bigger. I'm going to color all the ones over here in that same light yellow. I'm using color arbitrarily, which is an abstract strategy. By arbitrary, I mean it's not because that's how it actually looked. Now, Georgia O'Keeffe would likely have made the colors pretty similar to what they were in nature. I was starting from a black and white photograph, so I would only be guessing what they really were, and I'm going to take that as an opportunity to pick the colors I most want to use. Again, colors that you pick just because you like them, colors that are not exactly the same as what's in nature, well, that is one of the abstract strategies that we often see in abstract art. Now I have those. I want to pick a color for that central, I call it a jagged cloud-like shape. It's a little pointy for most clouds, but I'm just not sure what else it looks like. It just looks like a shape. It's not an oval and it's not a circle, although it's somewhat circular. but circles don't usually have quite such sharp edges. Cactuses, on the other hand, can for sure have sharp edges. I'm adding this pink because I wanted to stay in a color that was not too much lighter or too much darker than the yellow. I wanted to have them to have a similar value. Value means light, dark, or in between. And I wanted them to be close in value. Not too light, not too dark, but just similar in light to dark. You'll notice that they clearly have a different hue, because while yellow is one place on the rainbow circle of our colors, pink is, of course, just a light version of red. So in hue, that is to say where they show up on the rainbow color wheel, these are very different. In value, they're kind of similar. Well, I have this pink down, and I still left a few peekaboos showing, paper peekaboos. But I think before I go any further, I'm going to take a slightly different color. I'm going to take this tan color, sort of beigey tan. I'm going to go over the pink with that. I like blending two colors that are close together, but are not quite the same hue or are not quite the same value. That they have a lot in common, but they're slightly different. And I like putting them together, as I am in this shape, because it gives me sort of a richer color look. When my viewers look at it, when people come to see my picture, they may not even notice particularly that there's more than one color. They may think of it as just pink, or think that it's just tannish pink. The richness of those two colors together I find very engaging. Well, I've got that. Now I want to add a little bit of value change to the edges of those sharp triangle pieces. I want to make them look a little more three-dimensional. So I'm going to put a little, oops, wrong color. I'm just going to use black to make some parts darker. I'm going to add a little along the edge and up along one side, but not along the other side. Then I'm going to add some white coming along the other side. So I'll have a lighter yellow, where I'm putting the white now, and a medium yellow, and then even a darker yellow. I think I'll add a little tan to that middle part, just to emphasize the shift from light along here to medium in the middle, and then dark on the edge. I'm going to go back to my light yellow crayon, and notice as I draw over the black, which is over the yellow, it all starts to blend together a little. I'm going to give it just a little rub with my thumb. It gets the colors to blend together just nicely, so there's not that sort of sharp edge. It didn't take a lot of rubbing. In this case, just 1.5 solid strokes. I would do that to each of these to make it a more convincing three-dimensional effect. So I'm going to go here, a little black, and a little black, and a little black. I guess you're getting the idea, huh? I'm just putting the black on one side each time. And I'm going to think that as I get to this side, I'll switch which side, so it looks like the light is coming from one side, not the other. But I'll switch there. I think I could do it either way, and it would still be interesting. I'm going to put some light, white, on the opposite side from the black to make those. Now, when you're doing your design, you might well be doing some other object besides a cactus. And you might even, if you were doing a cactus, have a different view or a different way you wanted to do it. And that's okay. One of the joys of abstract art is that you can all start from the same place, and each person, each time they make one, can end up with a completely new, unique, one-of-a-kind image. I'm going to put a little of this gold going up the middle. Again, just to get more of that medium tone. Nice golden tan. And I work it in there. Now I haven't even started on other parts like the back, like these backgrounds. I think I'll probably make those, I'm thinking like a green with some deep greens. I think that might be interesting in contrast to these light yellowy sharp bits that cactuses have, and this pink center in here. For this pink center, I might come back later on and add some more color. I might want to do the edges a little. I think I could see doing something, but I want to get a little of the darker greens in. And for that, I think I'll start with this really deep green. And I'm going to color in one section right along here. Now, these are not like colored pencil in the sense that with colored pencil, I could be much more precise. I think that if I want to be really precise with oil pastels, I'd probably work much larger so that I could get relatively small detail, small compared to the size of the whole canvas or paper. But for now, I think this is going to cover this paper really well. It will take a little time, but if I went to a much bigger size, it would take a lot longer. On the other hand, if I were using colored pencils, the whole process would take even longer. Yes, I'd get more precision, more precise little tiny shapes and edges, but colored pencil is a slower medium. I really like it, but today I'm feeling more like the oil pastel. I could have taken this design and finished it with watercolors, acrylics, colored pencil. I chose oil pastel, but any of them would have worked. It's not the oil pastel that makes it abstract. It's the way we're taking out some shapes from that original photograph or from that object we're looking at, but maybe we're not taking everything. And then maybe we're making them much bigger so that something that in nature is very small becomes large. It gives us a different relationship to those things from nature and those shapes from nature. I'm going to continue on later, but I just wanted to show you that as I build up the green, one of the things that oil pastels will let me do is put another color over it to blend in as I did before. I'm going to get some of this light green in there. Again, I kind of like those two colors that are similar in many ways, but different. These are both greens, but one is clearly a lot darker. And I like the richness of the two of them together. Another thing I could do, I'm trying to go fast so I don't take too much time for you. I could go over it with an even more different color, such as this light green here. I am working at staying inside my lines. I don't know if you noticed it. Even though I'm being pretty physical with the material, I do want to stay inside the lines because I worked hard to get these very nice shapes and have them really feel like they came from the cactus. I don't want to lose that by making them into just sort of a random shape. The color may be random, but I want the shapes to feel like when someone looks at it, they can go like, yeah, I can see how that could come from a cactus. I've never really looked at a cactus quite this way or up this close before. And that would be, well, that would be a really great reaction for me. I'd feel really like I really accomplished something. Because that's kind of my goal here. To get people to look at the world around them in a fresh new way and appreciate maybe those very tiny moments. Well, I could also scratch through, see if I get anything interesting. Sometimes, and I could use a tool. In this case, I'm just using my fingernails as a tool. So I could get a slightly different texture. You notice I went over the yellow a little, but when I scratch, there it is again. Oh, look, that's kind of nice. Now it's back. Sometimes it just gives a nice range of textures. I want to get those little scraps off because I don't want to accidentally put them somewhere I don't want, like smear them into the pink, which I don't think I really want. Well, I'll show you where I get to later on, but check back and take a look at the finished picture. Ooh, I'm putting a little dark blue right at the edge of the pink. And then I'm going to blend that in. I like how you can really blend with the oil pastel. I think that's the main difference between this and regular wax crayons. They just blend so much more easily. I've used wax crayons on a very hot summer day outside, and I have to say, when it's warm enough out and they're sitting in the sun, they start to act a lot like oil pastels. I'm just getting a little bit of blue in there, some little marks, and then I want to blend them in because I don't want people to notice the marks so much here. I just want them to get that feeling of just a little bit of something darker at the edge, like the shape's going down or something. There we go. All right. Hey, I'll show you what it looks like at the end, and I hope it comes out well, but we'll find out. Hey, it's all discover and explore. Explore and discover. Talk to you real soon. Thank you a lot. Bye.